Thank you for coming. And I think we had an interesting session in French. And I hope, I'm not an actor, I have to tell you. I like to invent, I like to vary. So it's not going to be the same. The message might be similar, but the content and the process and the dynamic is going to be a little bit the same. Let me tell you just what I am sorry for, but I cannot help it. I wanted to leave you something tangible after the meeting. So I've developed some material that you can keep, because when you do some assessment and you have something, but I was told that they're not really at home here and they don't have time and the logistic didn't allow them to produce. So what I did is that I sent my PowerPoint, I sent everything to, what's his name? Frederic. Mm-hmm. So immediately after my presentation, you'll get it. So you don't have to take notes. I prefer that we interact. I want to ask you only one favor. I have a lot of passion for whatever I'm going to do. And sometimes, because of my passion, I'm going too fast, very fast, because I have a lot of content and I want to make sure that so stop me, Here, if you don't understand something, also, when you speak 7 languages and when you are tired, and I'm in my second session, you don't know which language comes out, So, so if I say something you don't understand or you disagree, perfect. My task is not to teach. I don't teach anymore. I facilitate. So I want to provoke you. I want to provoke you to use something that you have between the 2 ears. And if I succeed, I did a good job. If I did not succeed, and you're very apathetic and you don't feel either, furious or say, hey, that's interesting what he's saying, then I didn't do my job, okay? So if anyone, I have 3 very polite English ladies. If you're very polite, leave it outside the door. Here we are not, we don't need to be. The rule is that there are no rules. Except for physical violence, I tolerate everything, okay? So, simply stop me, ask me, and whatever I need. So I'll be talking about the future of work. And I'm going to take a lot of risk because, I'm not a prophet. I don't have a crystal ball. And I still want to talk about the future of work. I've been doing it. Someone is trying to get in. Let them in before I start. You want to get in? It's in English now.
Yes.
All right. Okay. I'm going to take a risk because I know that they're recording my session, but I'm going to move it from my jacket to this so I can take off my jacket. It's so I'll tell you a little bit about my history because I don't talk about myself. You notice who I am, where I'm coming from. It doesn't matter because you put in any chat GPT who is the Professor Simon L. Dolan, and you get to know me better than I know myself. And definitely, some of my students are doing it. Say, no, Professor, in one of your books it was written in 19. I have wrote it. Okay, I don't remember. When you have a lot of things, you don't remember everything. But sometimes in the future, when I left, I taught about 22 winters in Montreal, in Canada. I already said that, in Montreal, we don't count the years. We only count the winters that you survive. So I spent about 22 winters there. And then I moved to Spain. And my job was to, in Spain, to help a business school that was known to become excellent. At that time, I published a book. It's called Managing by Values. And the Managing by Value books became a new philosophy of management, because in the book I explain how do you move from managing by instruction, that is used to be the past management, to management by objective, MBO, to MBV. So MBI to MBO to MBV, and the dynamics is different. The dynamics is different because in the MBV, I explained that the word culture doesn't exist in organization. We should abandon it, and we start to talk about shared values, because sometimes in the same organization you have sub-value, sub-culture, all depends on the leadership, on the team, and so on. So we talk about shared values. So they read about my book, and they said, how about if you leave McGill and you come to ESADE and you help us to become better, So I told them it's a process, those of you that have done any kind of process consultation, organization development, call it whatever you want, it's a process, it takes time, but they were willing to take it, so I decided to take a salary cut of about 25%. I'm not complaining, because I'm not saying that in the salary didn't pay me well, but they paid me much better, in Canada at that time. And I'm very happy. I was very happy. So I did the change. If you read some of my books, it's very interesting. I learned from a good friend of mine at McGill that became one of the Sarah, I don't know if you know him, he's also a stress expert, but he's doing everything from a psychoanalytic point of view. His name is Manfred Ketz-de-Vries. No, you don't hear the name. You put Manfred Ketz-de-Vries, he's a stress, We used to be professor in McGill, and I always envy him about the titles that he gives his book. He has a book that, for example, it's called Better to Consult a Coach That End Up on a Couch. Coach, couch, things like this. So when I wrote, Managing by Values, the subtitle that is even more important than the title, the subtitle is, A Guide to Living, Being Alive, and Making a Living in the 21st Century. So it's or Coaching by Values that was published in 2011. It's a subtitle that is, it's how to succeed in the life of business and the business of life. So it's good and it's selling. Okay, so I was in ESADE, and it took me about 5 years, not alone. I don't want to take the credit, but I really helped them. If you go to any one of the ranking of the MBA program, in the Financial Times, in the work, in the Business Week, you see that ESADE becomes one of the top 10, 15, 20, and so I'm very happy about it. So they were happy with me also. They asked me, okay, professor, you did what you did. What else do you want to do? So I told them, I want to study the future. And they said, you're crazy. We don't have a course. It's called Studying of the Future, Future of Work, whatever. I said, I want to do it. I want to create, So they gave me a chair, and the chair was called Future of Work Chair. And I started to involve students thinking about the future. And the reason that I decided to look at the future is that, and I made a lot of enemies within my own institution because of what I'm going to say now, and hopefully you will not become my enemies. I said that ESADE, for example, is a top institution. Students pay an arm and a leg to study. I know that they pay a lot of money, because when my son wanted to study MBA, I told him, if you pay, you can study. If I pay, you cannot study. 80,000 euros for MBA. It's a lot of money, okay? So what do you want to say? My line of thought was quote. So they pay a lot of money, and I reached the conclusion, and I said it not to criticize what we are doing, but to start a discussion, a debate over the content about how do we prepare our students to succeed in the future. And my conclusion is that we do have in ESADE excellent professors. Students love them, but they teach yesterday's content. They're so good, they're in automatic pilot, and they're good, and they play, and students love them. Students can fall into this trap. The same thing, they fall into the influencer and many of the message is very nicely delivered, but it's obsolete. There are other group of professors that are teaching and preparing the students for their world today, but they don't prepare them for the future, because they don't know how to prepare them. They also don't know what are the competence, the skills that people will need in the future. So I created this institution that later on, when I left ESADE about 5-6 years ago, I closed my chair in ESADE and I opened a think tank foundation that basically we debate, we develop white papers, we don't do traditional research. And I have a very important ally, and you guys, you need to know it, because this ally published some of my very futuristic papers, and they have 15 million readers. I want to be an influencer, but not only among my colleagues in the academia. I did it. I became full professor when I was 40 years old, and I have to tell you, I know how to play the game, the academic game. I'm not very proud, because I published a lot of garbage. Today I call it garbage. I just published for publish because this was the name of the game. Since 40 years old, I don't collaborate with people that I cannot co-learn from them. I don't work on project. I don't, because we have one thing that cannot be substituted, and this is our time. I do consulting only with companies that I select. If they want to invite me, of course they're going to pay me, and sometimes they're surprised. They want to listen to me, and they need to decide if they like my message and if I am the messenger. And then I interview them, want to see if I want to work for them. And they're surprised. So, what do you mean? We'll pay you. I said, that's not enough. I want to assess the opportunity, the probability for success in what we are going to do. And I tell them, if you hire me, tomorrow we're changing the vocabulary. It's not me and you, it's us. If I fail, we fail. If I succeed, we succeed. They don't understand it, but this is the way I work today. So for the last 40 years, everything that I touch, everything that I do, I need to have passion. I need to like it. Because I mentioned it before, and I mentioned life. My metaphor for life is like a sandwich. We are born against our will, and we depart against our will. And anything that happens in between depends a lot on what we decide to do. Those of us that have faith, they believe in God, that God decides for us. I said, that's okay. Let's help God a little bit, okay? Let's decide. And let's not waste our resource that has no substitute. Time is passing. So let's work, let's do, let's engage in things that are meaningful to the best that we can, okay? And this is the motto of my life. Everything that I do is the same. So when I talk about the future of work, you need to understand that as a change, actually I don't want to use even the word change. We are not change agent anymore. We are transformer agent, because we live in an area of transformation, not change. Transformation is very different from change, because transformation we cannot go back. So if I take this phone and I move it here, this is a change. But if I don't like it, I can bring it back. But I cannot go back and use the phone that we used 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we used different type of technology, different of phone. Today, without an intelligent phone that every time becomes better and better, I mean, it's an instrument that we live by it, we swear by it. And if some of you would lose their phone, you see to what extent you are dependent. And if you look, you want to find out, Sarah, this is something to study, the addiction that we have to this phone. Let's see if you're honest. I'm going to ask you a question. Answer spontaneously, without thinking, if it's good politically or not. How many of you use this phone when you go to the toilet? Yeah, I'm also, that's addiction. Why? Because we live in an age of too much information. So what we do in the toilet is, we're going to delete. We just leave something that later on we're going to dedicate time. It's true, we have to manage the information somehow. So life is like a sandwich. The future is like a sandwich. So I decided to go into this kind of area, okay? I also want to tell you something, and I'm telling it to every doctoral DBA student. I was lucky in the more traditional PhD to train over 30 PhD students. They're all over the world today, okay? I'm both, Canada and Spain. And most of the former students are still my colleagues. We publish together articles, books. I'm very good, because I look at the doctoral level, DBA also. I told a guy today that wants to work with me, I'm going to assess you based on how much I'm going to learn from you. He was a little bit surprised. Yeah, you're going to become an expert in whatever you do. So you have to teach me. I can help you with the process. I know I can tell you if it has rigor, it has base, but what you will learn, you'll know by far more than I do, because I'm generalist. I am interested in different things. Okay, my curiosity leads me to different areas. You'd be an expert in this area, and you teach me. Okay, he was surprised. He understood the message finally, because we are also in a new concept. It's called co-evolution. We all are in co-evolution, and you can learn from anyone. You need to have just the attitude to learn. You can learn from your grandchildren, from your colleagues, from your students, from your spouses. Just need to have this. That's the way, by the way, I learn languages. I said that, I've never, English I studied, okay? But other than all the 7 other languages they speak, I just imitated children. I said, how come children learn language so fast? They even keep the right accent. We as adults, we don't. And I've reached a conclusion, they imitate. They have no shame to use, because you have to use the language even though you make mistakes. You're not perfect. I apologize for my French for the last session. I said, I know, not only this, my French became even worse since I live in Spain, because, because the Latin word and the words that you don't pronounce, so I mix it. That's okay. So you need to know it. So you need to, if you want to be transformation agent in any field, you need to have 3 legs. You need to have concept, you need to have methodology, and you need to have tools. So every single thing that I'm working in the last, and tomorrow I'm going to listen to Sarah, when she talks about stress. I work a lot of stress for many years, and she knows I collaborate with some of the big gurus in the field. I happen to work with the guy that invented the word stress. Because of him, I ended up in Montreal after, I came from Minnesota, from the Mayo Clinic, and in the word stress, there are different ways of doing it. You need to define it. What kind of stress? What is stress for you? What is the methodology of assessing? What are the tools that are using? You need to have concept. And that's okay to have different concepts. We don't compete with each other. One of my collaborators developed the famous Maslow MBI. If you heard about the MBI, Maslow burnout, Susan Jackson. This was her PhD thesis. And then she worked with me, so we had a lot of time to discuss, So I really know the who I know. So if I studied values, everyone talks about values. No, you have to decide, you have to develop a reduced concept, you have to develop methodology, and you have the tools. And today I'm with trust. So I'm defining it. I wrote a paper in 2014. Trust me, it's a scale, how to measure it. Because if you don't develop, you don't define, you don't have methodology, how can you change anything? You can't. You use it generically, and it just creates conflict. Having said all this, I happened to meet a futurologist, Swiss futurologist, that we became close friends. And he told me, why don't we write a book about the future? And I told him, I don't know enough about the future. For the most, I know the angle that I was trained that has to do with the future of work. But talking about the future of the world, he said, let's do something. So in 2008, we wrote our first book that was based on, we've identified, this is not research. I know, I apologize. We've identified 550 about wise people in the world, different places. We had contact. And we asked them, what do you think are the 10 principal problems that the world is facing? And we reduced it. We got input, we reduced it, and we wrote chapters about what were some of the common denominator. This was in 2010. The book is called Beyond Society and I need to put it, a little bit bigger. The book was called, those are the book. This is the first book. It's called Beyond, and it's called, I think, Society and Organization and Company Transformation, something like this. It's the subtitle, okay? So, and this was years before the pandemic, and we predicted the pandemic. We predicted immigration crisis in the world. That's based on tendency, what happened with the people they have not, the technology. We predicted that the small group of people are going to cause a lot of harm, terrorism. We talked about it. We predict in the book, go back, find out. There's going to be nuclear explosion, just probability, of people, either it's human error, machine error, whatever, it will happen. And some other things that we predict that all are happening today. So this gave me the courage to keep on writing about the future. I also reached the conclusion that if you write about the future, you need to invent new terms that do not exist. Because you cannot employ terms of today and talk about the future. So we use, for example, another book, 2014, with it's called Cyberness, The Future Reinvented. So it's only on Amazon, okay? And cyberness is a new term. It's a new term based on my life philosophy. And my life, I'm an optimistic guy. Probably even when he calls me, I have a smile on my face because I like the good things in life. And I'm sick and tired of people talking about the end of the world. And with technology, artificial intelligence, we will not have jobs, we will not, I'm sick and tired. So we wrote the book with the hope of giving people reason to dream positively. But how do you develop scenario about the future? It's very hard. When future scenario normally are based on your past experience, it's hard to develop scenario based on no experience. So, Mario is really an expert in creativity. We had session. And also we decided to invite a third author. She's considered to be a paradigm breaker, social paradigm breaker in the US. Her name is Riane Eisler. I know anyone heard the name? No, Riane Eisler, look at Chat GPT. Riane has a vision. She has a book very famous called The Chalice and the Blade. I don't know if this rings a bell, no? Anyhow, very feminist, obviously, but she talks about society in general and things that it's not obvious. We don't see it today, but it will have in the future. And some of the examples she gives, that's the way I read some of her stuff and I got to invite her. She said, look at the definition of work or employment. Today, employment or work means that you offer your competence, your energy, your time, and you get paid. This is the exchange. But what about the type of work that this exchange doesn't work? Example, parenthood. If you're a good parent or bad parent, you don't get paid for it. However, if you're a bad parent, your children are going to be a problem to society and we all pay for it. I don't know if you understand it. And she developed this kind of paradigm. Today we're starting to understand something that was nonsense. So Riane helped us also with this book. And we talk a lot about future scenario, all positive. How do you collaborate with robots equipped with artificial intelligence? I know it's complicated. Today, if you teach managing people, managing team, a virtual team, it's already complicated to manage diverse team. Actually, it's very complicated to manage one person in a life. I mean, I'm in the second chapter. The first chapter didn't work, okay? And we know that. So if we have problem to manage one person in our life, imagine managing a team, complicated. You add to it managing robots equipped with it's a new dimension, okay? So if you look at robots as your competitors, it's going to be bad. You have to look at robots as your allied to find out how do you collaborate together to make life better, to add more value to society, etc., etc., etc. Well, this is my way of looking. Maybe that, I'm stupid, maybe I'm naive, maybe it's in a utopia, but I prefer to be called like this, okay? And to start develop scenario where people will start to reflect about it. So I wrote this one. Now I just published something, and again, I'm visionary in this regard. Now, maybe it doesn't develop into business because I'm not known to be a very successful business person. I'm not complaining. I live very well and I generate money. But when I asked some of my colleagues, Dave Ulrich, Mario, and Chad, to write a book about future of work, textbook, interactive, using a platform that was born in my office in Esade with one of my doctoral students, Chad Albrecht. Chad, at that time, about 15 years ago, got PhD with me in organizational behavior in Esade. His father is a very well-known professor in Utah, and his brother is a professor in information technology. They're all Mormons. This is a common denominator. And the Mormon gave them 1 million seed money to develop a new interactive platform. And this interactive platform was developed years before the pandemic that everyone is starting, It's called My Educator. Actually, I'm happy. I gave My Educator. Today, I have 74,000 students. I don't teach them. I just get the royalty. And it's very good for the pocket, I have to tell you, okay? And they pay me every month. Not like the traditional publisher that pay you once a year, or the one that do not pay you at all in Russia, in India, in Brazil, okay? You have a contract, but for them contract is meaningless, okay? So we made you famous. This is the logic. The Brazilian editor, publisher doesn't pay me. I made you very famous in Brazil. You get invited, you have a conference, you make money, I don't have to pay you. Contract is a contract. It's worth nothing. Same thing they have in India, in Russia, and some other places, okay? So the future of work, what I'm talking about today, it's a new book, but where we talk about what I'm going to share with you in a second, okay, the content. But there is no class in the world that is teaching future of work. So we decided to adopt the Japanese system. We're going to create the demand for the book. The book exists because we believe that students are not prepared for enough, sufficient to the future of work, not only in management, in medicine, in medicine, think about it. Today, medical doctors have completely new role to play, and if they are not trained, nobody is training them. Before, you went to see a doctor, and you tell him, I have this. He made a diagnosis, he told you, take this pill, come in 3 weeks, and that's it. To say, doctor, if I take this pill, tell me, please, what are the side effects? Right. Doctor, are you sure? Did you check with your ChatGPT that there is no another place in the world that have better pills, I'm difficult patient, but I'm not the only one. Because today, we are trained to make decisions, even not in our field. When I had to, in my age, to operate my prostate, I had to choose the urologist. I had to tell her which method she's going to use and which hospital I want to be. Yeah. That's a trust. So I will come with my mind prepared. So you do a lot of work, you select the urologist that you like, you want to convince her, you say, no, I better go traditional ways. No. You not want to do this one, that's fine. Because I want it less invasive. That's my preference, and I'm the patient. So the future for medical doctors today is not only to know medicine, also to know, because the same doctor that studied medicine 20 years ago, and is applying the same knowledge, in your case, he's going to kill you. Not only that he's not going to help you, he's going to kill you. Because everything becomes obsolete. Everything is changing. And you need to make sure that those professionals that you are dealing with, they have a pulse on the latest. Okay? So what I'm saying is that you need to look at the future of work, and I've found out in the last 20 years that if you want to explain something that people would like, you have to reduce the complexity. Sarah knows, talking about stress is very complex model. Moderator variable, independent, very complex. But you have to find a way of reducing it. Anyone here speaks Spanish a little bit? Because sometimes there are terms in one language, they do not exist in other languages. One of them is in Spanish called sencillo. Sencillo means you take the complexity and you reduce it in something that is more simple, but it's not simple. You still reflect the complexity and you keep the major ingredients of the complexity, not all of it, sufficient in order to generate positive change. Are you with me? So it's called sencillo in maybe in English. I don't know, there is no word. No, it's not my lack of language. You know, sencillo, it's not simple. It's something else, but it's not simple. I know. So everything that you see that I'm publishing in the last couple of years has either 3 axes, 3 dimensions, 3. People like it, and people retain it, and they remember it. So let me talk about the 3 principal drivers that are going to transform the work. Some of them are not completely new to you. This is the technology, the digital world and the virtual world. We know it. Every day there is new development. Every day. I mean, I know in my own writing, I'm learning. After writing, I don't want to say how many. I'm like a woman. I don't like to talk about the number of my books. A woman, when she reaches 50, she's always 50, no? So I wrote many books, okay? But I found out that when I use programs or artificial intelligence, my productivity goes up by about 300%. Very fast. I write article in one day. I can. I'm not saying it's a good article.
That's the nature of technology, though, isn't it? It
yes.
accelerates work.
No, because what happened...
I've heard this a couple of times today, of this shock that AI is going to increase productivity.
It's not a shock for me.
Not a shock.
No, I love it.
You have technology. Technology has
I love it.
increased.
I love it. What happened is that when you write in a language is not your mother tongue, and you need to make sure that the language is clear and all this, I spend a lot of time revising. Today I feed the IA with a paragraph. I told him, make it clear, and I get it clearer. And then I ask him, make sure that you didn't take it for someone else because it's original, and he checks it. Make sure. So you need to know how to interact. Okay, I gave the example of some of my images. I'm the worst artist in the world. I love music. I don't touch any, and I don't know how to play any musical instrument. I envy artists. And drawing, but all this is all my drawing are my creativity using artificial intelligence. And what I do, I interact. I don't do this. No, change this color, do this, expand it. We talk. I mean, talk. You know what I'm saying? And I end up, so all this I say, wow, this is, so the process of preparing is becoming playful. And playfulness is important. It's, we're all children, basically. And we like to have the opportunity to do things that could be serious and playful at the same time, okay? So this is the first driver, no doubt about it. And again, it's a label, it's a title, it includes a lot of things. I don't have time. In the books, we go into some of them. And maybe in 2 years, we have to write the second edition. The beauty about digital books is that you revise them permanently. Okay, you don't have to write a complete, so whatever is not good, whatever, you interview different people. I love it, I really love, If you don't know the platform, I advise you, go to myeducator.com and you discover if you're a professor, you're teachers, you want to use something good, go to this platform. It's interesting. It exists for many, many years and they perfect. Second thing, the world is global. You like it, you're against, you're in Brexit, you still cannot be alone. We live in a global world, okay? And most students and most companies and most professionals are not used to it. Because you need to break the paradigm. You need to make sure that you are preparing for a global world. And a global world requires not only competence in managing diversity, because your team could be virtual, and you might have people that have different holidays, I mean, tonight is becoming a Jewish important holidays, and my student from Nepal in Madrid, I talked to her today. Said no, in Nepal it's the most important. We have a lot of food and a lot of eating. So imagine you have a Jewish guy and a Nepalese guy in the same team, and what do? You can you stop eating for a day, you fast, or you eat. It's just stupid question, but you understand what I'm trying to tell you. So, in the globalization, also means that you have to develop this competence for globalization. It means in terms of diversity, in terms of culture, in terms of languages, in many, because this is the world that we live. We don't know where we're going to end up, and the young generation is starting to understand it, because unlike our parents that we work for the same company all the years, all our life, they will do a lot of job hoppings. And if they don't do job hoppings, they will do something that we label it, and many others call it, portfolio employment, which means that we can work 50% for one institution, another 25% for another institution. They don't compete with each other, obviously, for loyalty, and 25, as autonomous. So portfolio employment, all this means globalization. And globalization also is connected to the third driver, and this is permanent creation and innovation. It's very hard, by the way. This is the toughest theme for every professional is to de-learn and relearn. To leave behind what we know, what we've studied, and to learn something new. Not easy. Companies, the same. You probably know the expression, don't rock the boat. And again, talking about the telephone, about 12 years ago, I was invited to Finland, to Nokia, and I told them about you need to create, you need to innovate, the market is changing. And they say, why? We are the best. We dominate the market. And that's not enough, because others will dominate the market, and it's going to be much faster. It's not true for football. If you like football, it's not true. Having success is today. Doesn't guarantee success in the future. Before, having success today guarantees success in the future, but not anymore. You need to, and to be in permanent creativity, it means taking risk, no doubt about it. Listen, when my marriage broke down, the first company, I call it marriage, for me it's a company, a lot of people don't like it, but company of two people, When you get out of one relationship, you don't have any guarantee that the second one are going to be better. No guarantee. No. But you know that if you don't break out, you're going to die. At least this was my perception, So based on this, I don't want to tell you about my my divorce settlement, because I made a mistake. I told it to one of my MBA student, and a young MBA student said, "Can I marry you?" So anyhow, so permanent creativity, it's not easy. Why? I use the metaphor of a pendulum for creativity. If you move it a little bit, you innovate a little bit, but you take a very low risk. When you start to move the pendulum very vigorously, the distance between innovation, true innovation, and stupidity is very close. Because thinking of listen, in the value area, I just published my second book's tale for children about values. And a lot of my friends, the professor, this is an old professor, he lost his mind, maybe he's unable to satisfy adults, students, serious people. Now he's writing for children. And I wrote for children because I believe that we all want to be good parents. We don't have the tools, we don't have the method, we don't know how to instill values in children. And I believe that one of the best tools to instill value in children it would tell story, interesting story, you know. So I wrote, you know, but this time there is no escape for parents, because I also wrote a guide, complimentary, no money, for the children. If you use the tale, here is a guide. How do you use tales in instilling value in children? Okay, so if my first tale was called the flying, the flying carpet and the islands of values, now the sequel, no, it's called the flying drone, or the magic drone and the islands of values. Okay, and so on and so forth. It's. I mean, I enjoy it. You know, I enjoy to give parents, educators, some tools that they can use through storytelling. But a lot of people think that, how dare he? He writes to children. He doesn't even have doctorate in early education. Because the same extent happens right now when I am supporting the DBA, this DBA. Because I used to be in good institution, I used to be director of doctoral program, and I love the institution. That's why I ask you in Manchester what's happening. If you don't, if the PhD people don't see it as a competition, you're wonderful. In the 3-4 institutions that I was, they didn't let me develop it because it's a competition. And actually, they also have a kind of elitist type of system. No, PhD is serious. DBA, it's a Mickey Mouse degree, you know. So I talked to Michel, you know, we need to make sure that we have rigor, we have everything that it takes really for the degree to be a meaningful, serious degree, because otherwise we can give them the ammunition to attack us. But so those are the 3 drivers. What we're doing right now, this is coming next month. This is the Spanish version of this one, except that the title has changed, because we decided, future of work is very boring. Future of work, so we need to have more sexy titles. So we call it, breaking the game. More or less, it translates like this, but it's the same. The content is very, very similar. And with Mario, I'm writing something that probably it will be published in 2026, Shaping Our Future. What Mario is saying is that each one of us has 2 roles in society. The one that is more reacting to changes. In other words, if we want to survive, we need to react. We cannot be still, because otherwise we become obsolete. But the other role is to be part of the transformation, to be more active, politically, in education, and so on and so forth. Okay, so shaping the future is an idea of how can we be more proactive, involved in politics, in education, the community, and in some other places, in academia. Okay, so this is what we are writing now. The rest of it, I'm just going to show you a few. Just few slides. You'll get all this. You see, I want to impress you with the creativity of my slides. So the workplace, is it transforming, not changing, faster than ever due to technology, globalization, and societal shift. And you need to break a mindset. Creating a mindset. I'll give you an example. So when my MBA student in Esade, after they paid $80,000, they are about to graduate, they said, "Professor, you have some books on managing human resources. Can you please help me to improve my CV?" And I asked him, "Why?" So he thought maybe I didn't understand. He said, "Can you help me improve my CV?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "What do you mean, why? I spent so much money, I had to borrow money, I'm looking for a job, and I need to have a CV because this is the first thing that, employer is looking for." And then I told him, "Why do you look for a job?" And he thought that I'm completely crazy. And he, "What do you mean?" And then I told him, "Why don't you create a job?" See, they don't even think about it. What you know about the new generation is that many of them are not looking to work for all the big multinationals. Very bureaucratic, very big, You don't know what kind of toxic leader you're going to report to. They might pay me you. They want excitement. They want to find places where they can employ their new talent, competence. I did survey, and now, 5 years I don't. And so you have two organizations, one that pays you 30% more than the other. One is big multinational, the other one, you don't know, it's a startup. But you know that to work for the big company, you really need to report to a guy very well known, but he is an SOB. 80% of my students said we'll take pay undercut, but we look for more meaningful position. And the 20% that opted for the big job, they said, I'm going to work for 2 years, I'm going to repay my debt, and then I'm going to move to the other sector. So I'm going to tolerate it for 2 years, even though he is an SOB. So
the big assumption that the people who run the small
No, I know. But this is the way I put the scenario. I know. You're absolutely right. I know. Thank you. You're absolutely right. No, I built it this way so that, I know. Imagine, can you work for in the team of, let's say, Trump, even though he will pay you very well?
No.
Okay, see, that's what I want to say. All right, okay.
But there is no guarantee that the small organization isn't also run by a Trump.
No, but you risk very little to move from one small organization to another small organization. But when you quit your General Motors, or you quit SAP, or you quit, why did you quit? What happens? In other words, the burden is going to be on you to explain why you're not working there. Small company, no problem. So we will, have societal shift, and the new generation also knows that they are going to do a lot of job hopping. They will not work for the same organization. So there are some trends. 50% of companies plan to adopt AI by 2025. We still don't know. Interesting. In Barcelona, we have a district that's called the 22 at 22. It's the digital. And there are about 3,000 companies there. A lot of startups, but also Facebook, and so on and so forth. And they hired me about 2 years ago to find out how do they attract talent to this district, worldwide talent. So in order to attract talent to the digital district, I need to find out how do they find success in whatever these new people are doing, So I ran a small, not very scientific, randomly, they gave me 200 names of companies randomly, and I interviewed them, what do you think are the competence that you need? And what surprised me in this, I had a hunch that's going to happen, but I didn't have any hard data, and this is not hard data, 200 randomly, all know in research. I thought that, those that in the digital sector, those that have the latest know-how about technology, those are the ones that will be the most successful. And surprise, surprise, these people told me that in order to succeed, they need a lot of soft skills. Soft skills is that how to de-learn, relearn, how to enter into a team, how to influence their bosses to get how those kind of things. Very, very interesting. Okay, those are the competence, and we don't teach them. They don't study this at the university. So it's very, very interesting about the new role. Okay, I have 5 more minutes or something like this. Can I spend with you? That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think those soft skills can be taught? Because we talk
it's
about
a good question. You should talk
to
to Mario. I believe that 70% yes, about 30% I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Mario said that even creativity you can teach, and we have a lot of debate about it. Sarah, stress management, can we teach to people to be less stressed? Or I should wait until tomorrow?
We can give people tools, but there are lots of different factors that impact on whether we can then deploy.
Yeah, but if someone applies the tools, can they reduce their stress?
In part.
In part, okay. She's very academic still, She does want to take risks. That's okay. I'm going to learn from you tomorrow, okay? We're talking about a lot of independent workers, a lot of them, My daughter lives in Canada. She and her ex-husband started a business 10 years ago, and in 10 years they developed it into 6,000 people. 2 people, 6,000 in 10 years, okay? But the business model, because she read some of my books, so the business model is that 99% of the people who worked for her were part-time and were autonomous. Only 1% were people that were paid salaries, and those that paid salaries worked from their home, and my daughter and her ex-husband worked from their home. So no overhead. It's the idea, okay? Recruiting. I don't know if you heard about mystery shopper. You know, you heard about it. So they are the biggest mystery shopper in Canada. They bought all the competition. They are big, and 6,000. It's amazing. They're all autonomous people. I'm going to skip a couple of them. This is I'm going to skip it also because certainly tomorrow you're going to talk about this era. Okay. If it's 40, 50, 30. It's an issue of the future. Okay, it's a little bit, it's a little bit incongruent to think about how come everything is becoming better, technology better, food better, sanitation better, and stress is on the rise. And let me tell you how I got into this. If you want to know my personal story, I was trained in Minnesota. I was working in the Mayo Clinic for another researcher, and I interviewed about 300 managers that survived their first heart attack. All of them thought that they're in good shape, good health. One day, the youngest 27, the oldest 77, so we had the range. The only common denominator for all of them, they were working people, okay, in professional and executive position. So they are surviving it. I always crack a joke. I said, we want to interview those that didn't survive, but the technology so far we don't have. And we interviewed them and asked them one question. This is not research, but it was sufficient for me to start to develop life philosophy, because most people don't think about it. They're caught in dynamic of life, and they start to develop life philosophy only when they have crisis. Could be health crisis, romantic crisis, work crisis, until we don't have, we think we are eternal, no? So I asked these people, in 3 months, I interviewed them. They survived. They're afraid for their life, and I'm dressed, with white gown. Tell them I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a student. I'm doing research. And ask them one question: what do you think was the prime reason for your condition? This is perception, nothing else. But when 90% pointed out something connected with the world of work, I said, we need to study it. We need to find out. So I reached a conclusion. There is something, a new type of toxicity. It has no color, it has no odor, but it kills, okay? So I started a whole, and then I've developed, at that time, all my models were 2x2. I think that today everything is 3. And the 2x2, I developed, a model of success in life. And in life, we have two things. We had personal life, we had professional life, okay? So imagine 2x2. If you keep your health, mental and physical, in good health, this is positive, no? If your health gets affected mentally, physically, negative. Look at your professional life. If you're dead wood, you don't contribute to the organization, this is negative for the organization. And if you add value, it's positive. Then let's look at the configuration of the 2x2. Obviously, the win-win is that not only that you add value, but you also actually work becomes a therapy. That's what's happening to me right now in my age and time. I really like whatever I do, our opportunity. Because what is the alternative? To sit on the beach and do nothing, I'll probably die in about a month. So it's win-win is this. The worst is that, when you don't contribute and you become sick. I call it sometimes when you live incongruent with your core values. So you need the money, but you hate your boss, or you hate your colleagues, you hate this, so you suffer every day. So it's become chronic situation. But then could be the other combination, You're so good at work, everybody hails you, but you pay the price for being so good. Because you could be a superman, superwoman for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, not all your life. Because you pay the price. Or the contrary, in order not to deal with your crazy boss, you said, I'm just going to do 905. We call 905 those people that work for the government in Canada. They come at 9 o'clock, they do 0, and they leave at 5 in the afternoon, You do just the minimum so that you don't get, today we don't fire, we de-hire. It's more positive, no? So you don't get de-hired. You do the minimum. And in the government, unless you do something criminal, they cannot fire you. See what I mean? So, but what a pity that you have a manager that doesn't know how to use your full potential because you can add so much more. So when I did this, I entered into the world of stress. So I published this paper about it. Hans Selye read it and he said, "Young guy, come and work with me." So I moved to Montreal because of this. You know, it's serendipity, if you wish. Okay, but I was lucky. I'm not. So stress and mental health, in general, is going to be a big issue in the future. But not just the treatment of mental health. I think it's the prevention and the proaction. How to make sure that, and every time we're becoming better in providing tools, in providing methodology, so that companies can do it, because it's much better for the quality of life of their people and also for them. There is an issue of ethics. Ethics is going to haunt us for a long time. The algorithm that we developed, the artificial intelligence. You know, don't forget, those are people that develop it. The artificial intelligence falls in the hands of who? If it's the bad lord of the world, and there are many of them, it's a risk. I believe that in humanity we'll find ways of managing it. For the moment, it's a big issue. But ethics, by the way, it's a big thing, you know, and it's become even better. So we talk about leadership. By the way, in leadership, one of my innovation leadership, those of you that are studying it, I think that we should not talk about leadership as an individual phenomena. I don't know this animal, it's called leader, that is good in everything. So maybe in the future we talk about a team of leaders that they complement each other and they can be more agile and so on. But this is something to do. This is something that we need to see. Obviously, there is a good leader in one sector doesn't guarantee it's going to be a good leader in another sector, okay, or in another culture. So leadership is individual phenomena maybe in the future. The issue of reskilling, upskilling, is going to be a big issue, no doubt about it. And human-machine collaboration. Human-machine collaboration, start to study it. I hope that we'll have some DBA students that this will be of interest to them. I want to finish by telling you that I've developed a new tool that is a prototype. And I'm in look for a doctoral DBA student that will study it, will validate it. And this is, I published a paper, it's called, "To What Extent Are We Prepared for the New World of Work?" So I discovered about 10 dimensions that we can assess ourselves and assess our organization. It was born about 5 years ago when I was asked to deliver a workshop to vice president of big Dutch companies in Erasmus. You know, all the Philips, all the big ones. So I gave them this questionnaire. You know, it's very short and dirty, but it needs to, 10 dimension. Interesting enough, two things that I noticed. Number one, I asked them to what extent you are prepared on each one of the dimensions, and to what extent your organization is prepared. One common thing that I noticed is that all of the vice presidents think that they are better prepared than their organizations. And I don't know why. They are vice president. They're the one that, at the base. But I'm looking for someone that will help us develop the prototype into something measurable, because talking about something, but we need to develop methodology, scenario building, being creative, and also more tools to do it. Listen, if you have any questions or comments, they are welcome. And thank you for spending this afternoon with me. Thank you. Thank you.